For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Former President Donald Trump chose not to act as he watched his supporters attack the nation's capital for more than 3 hours. And even then, he still couldn't concede he lost the 2020 election, despite desperate pleas from his aides, a Republican congressional leader, and his own family, according to the testimony from former White House officials at a January 6th House committee hearing last night. Benji Heyer has more.
187 minutes, during which the president betrayed his oath by refusing to call off the march.
It was him pouring gasoline on the fire and making it much worse.
That allegation from Sarah Matthews, Donald Trump's former deputy press secretary, one of 2 ex-staffers who testified. She called January 6th one of the darkest days in the nation's history. Then, perhaps the most chilling revelation by a Secret Service witness who described hearing Vice President Mike Pence's security detail screaming over the radio and saying goodbye to their families in fear for their lives. More hearings are scheduled for September. Benji Heyer, Washington.
During the hearing, witnesses described how Trump betrayed his oath of office by refusing to publicly call for a peaceful transition of power. And when he finally called the protesters to withdraw from the Capitol, it wasn't until Fox News reported the National Guard was getting ready to respond, not at Trump's behest. Then he told his supporters, "I love you, you're special." In that video message, Trump's former press aide, Sarah Matthews, says that's when she resigned.
I felt a small sense of relief because he finally told these people to go home. But that was immediately followed up by him saying, "We love you, you're very special." And that was disturbing to me because he didn't distinguish between those that peacefully attended his speech earlier that day and those that we watched cause violence at the Capitol. Instead, he told the people who we had just watched storm our nation's Capitol with the intent on overthrowing our democracy, violently attack police officers, and chant heinous things like "Hang Mike Pence, we love you, you're very special." And as a spokesperson for him, I knew that I would be asked to defend that.
And Trump still couldn't concede the day after the siege, according to this outtake of his address to the nation.
But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
5 people died that day as Trump supporters battled the police in gory hand-to-hand combat to storm the Capitol. Since then, more than 840 people have been charged with federal crimes related to the attack. More than 330 of them have pled guilty. 200 have been sentenced, 100 to jail time. Hearings will resume in September. A bipartisan effort to reform electoral votes is underway in the Senate. Mary Sherman has more.
The confusing and antiquated language that we have on the books today from the 1887 Electoral Count Act is a real and present danger to our democracy. We can fix that.
Led by West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin and Maine Republican Susan Collins, a bipartisan group of senators introduced legislation to reform the Electoral Count Act. The measure clarifies the vice president has a strictly ceremonial role during the certification of presidential election results. The vagueness of the original law was exposed when congressional supporters of former President Donald Trump attempted to overturn results in 5 states. I'm Mary Sherman for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID-19. The White House said he's experiencing very mild symptoms. Biden has begun taking Paxlovid, an antiviral drug designed to reduce the severity of COVID-19. Biden's infection comes as COVID-19 rates and hospitalizations in the U.S. have increased nearly 20% over the last 2 weeks. Deaths have increased 30% to more than 400 people a day. More than 1 million people have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. Many more are living with long COVID symptoms. Russia and Ukrainian officials are poised to sign a deal to end Russia's blockade of tens of millions of tons of Ukrainian grain. It's threatened food security around the world. The 2 countries are expected to sign separate agreements with Turkey and the United Nations today that would enable Ukraine to export 22 million tons of grain. that have been stuck in Black Sea ports due to Russia's blockade. The Secretary General of the United Nations and Turkey's president plan to take part in signing ceremonies in Istanbul today. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials say emergency workers have recovered 3 bodies from a school hit by a Russian strike in the eastern part of the country as attacks continued in several parts of the nation today. The reported casualties follow attacks on a densely populated area of Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, that killed at least 3 people and wounded 23 others. A judge has sentenced former Minneapolis police officer Thomas Lane to 2.5 years in prison on a federal civil rights charge for his role in George Floyd's murder. District Judge Paul Magnuson sentenced Lane for his February conviction of depriving Floyd of medical care as a black man lay dying under then Officer Derek Chauvin's knee in the May of 2020. Lane, who was white, held Floyd's legs as Chauvin pinned Floyd down for nearly 9.5 minutes, killing him. 2 men have been indicted in the case of a tractor-trailer rig found with 53 dead or dying migrants inside San Antonio earlier this month. Conviction on the death counts could result in life sentences. The Attorney General's office could authorize prosecutors to seek the death penalty. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.